Kyler Murray, the 2022 season as the quarterback 7 in fantasy points per game. But that's a little deceiving. He would have been about the quarterback 4 or 5 had he not really played that week 14 game against New England. He had one attempt, completed one pass for 9 yards, and rushed the ball 3 times. So take away that, and his season looks a little bit different in a points per game basis. In fact, Kyler Murray was coming off of 3 straight games where he was a top 8 quarterback, and 2 of those 3 games, 26 or more fantasy points. It seemed like he was really hitting his stride. He had 56 or more rushing yards in 2 of the last 3 games coming into that week 14 game against New England, and even had 100 rushing yards back in week 6 against Seattle. So for a player like Kyler Murray, it's unfortunate that he suffered an ACL tear in that New England game, and it seems like a pretty serious injury. The trajectory seems to be that he's going to miss up to 4 weeks of the beginning of the season. This is later on in the season than the ACL tear that Joe Burrow suffered a couple years ago. And we remember Joe Burrow barely made it to week 1. So I anticipate that Kyler Murray is going to miss the first 4, maybe 6 games of the season. And even you're not going to see him running for 50, 60, or even 100 yards in probably the rest of the season. Like, I would be surprised to see him get up to that for the first 5 or 6 games, or it wouldn't surprise me at all if he rushes for no more than about 20 or 30 yards max each game for the rest of the 2023 season. If you like the content, you found this helpful, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. Now, his contract is one where there's been some chatter. Are the Cardinals going to move on from Kyler Murray? What can they get in the trade? Obviously, the NFL don't really mean much. The only thing that matters is guaranteed money for quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray had just signed an extension in the 2022 season, where, if you remember, there was the awkward study hall phrase in his contract, and then it was taken out after there was public embarrassment about it. Now Cliff Kingsbury is fired and Keim is out as GM. There's been chatter about Sean Payton possibly taking over not only as the head coach, but also as GM. And there's been a lot of love that Sean Payton has shown over the years toward Kyler Murray. And there aren't very many GM plus head coaching opportunities. And you know how Sean Payton would want his hands on a lot of things in the Cardinals organization. From a contract perspective, 2023 is actually a pretty generous year for the Cardinals to build pretty extensively around Kyler. It's unfortunate that he's probably going to miss the first couple of games because his cap hit is only about $16 million this year, and a dead cap of $97 million. There's no way that Kyler Murray is getting moved. In fact, based on Spotrac.com, the potential out noted there is in 2028. It's 6 years, $219 million. Finally, he'll get a zero dead cap at that point. The dead cap is at $7 million in 2027. So he's pretty locked into the Cardinals over the next 4 years, pretty much no matter what, aside from a trade and renegotiation of salary. It's going to be interesting also whether DeAndre Hopkins is moved in this offseason and how that can affect Kyler Murray. However, at the beginning of the season, when Kyler was throwing to Marquise Brown and Rondell Moore and Greg Dortch, we saw 3 of his first 4 games as a top 9 quarterback, 20.6, 26.9, 23.9 fantasy points during that span. If he can get an extra passing touchdown or the sprinkling in of the rushing, I'm just concerned that he's going to lack the 26 fantasy point upside that we had seen 3 different times this past year in 10 games where he played majority of snaps. So Kyler Murray is one of those players that we've seen high upside from him before. But if we look at the quarterback rates at which he hit 25 fantasy points, Kyler Murray ranked as the quarterback 10 with 15.7% of his games at top 5 quarterback. take out that bad game, it's closer to that 22, 24% in the same range as the Joe Burrows and Jared Goffs of the world, the Trevor Lawrences. I think that he falls into that high third tier behind Hurts, Mahomes, and Allen for next year, and then also behind Lawrence and Burrow. I think he fits into that Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson tier where they can get into that tier 2 or even into that tier 1, but there's more risk. And so I think with Kyler, he's a risky third tier upside quarterback. If you're drafting in best ball or in other places, you're obviously monitoring how he's going to progress this offseason. But with the later ACL tear, it's going to be something that I will take him at the right price, but I'm not going hog wild, and I'm not going to probably go after him for value. He might be a later stack if I'm considering stacking him with Marquise Brown. If we look at what Marquise Brown did during the first half of the season before DeAndre Hopkins came through week 6, Marquise Brown was getting targeted 11 times, 17 times, 11 times, 10 times, 9 times with DeAndre Hopkins gone. So there is clear chemistry between Kyler Murray and Marquise Brown. I'm in on that. So if we get a good value in Marquise Brown and Kyler Murray's making good progress, I could see Kyler Murray as one of those tier 3 quarterbacks that I wouldn't mind pairing with another upside quarterback, a Burrow and a Lawrence in the middle rounds.